Hello and welcome back to Explore-Overland. And today we're going to be heading out to the beautiful Tallarook Ranges, about an hour north of Melbourne. And we're going to take on the infamous PHONE track. And PHONE track has changed a fair bit over the last 4 or 5 years with the erosion and the track being torn up a fair bit, because it's quite popular now with crews heading out with the big gear with the 37s. And when it's muddy, because it's on the side of Mount Hickey, it takes some serious work getting up when it's wet, especially because of that red Central Victorian red clay. And because of it, the track has some pretty big 37-inch trenches through the middle of it. But we're going to tackle it in the Discovery run with one rear diff lock and 32s. And we're just at the start of the track here. It's actually not signposted, but it's off the intersection here of Main Road in Gravel Pit. And I'm just giving the Discovery a bit of a warm up here through this water erosion trench. And that banging noise you can hear there, that's the springs dislocating and relocating inside the spring hangers. This is a great test right here. It's nothing crazy, but it will test the articulation as you're going through. And just work your way through and really give it a bit of a balance test on the way up. It's not that crazy that it's going to tip you over if you're careful going through. You can definitely get some wheels up in the air though and have a bit of fun. There's footage from over a couple of days here, and I'd been up here the day before when it was really wet, and you can see here with the Discovery it's just the red clay on top of the rocks, which is not a great recipe for traction. But I had to cancel it the day before because I'd been up and I was in the middle of between the two chutes. I got up the first one, then it just started pouring rain, and the second chute just become that treacherous it wasn't worth heading up and wrecking the car and not getting all the camera gear wet either. So I packed it up and headed home. And this is the next morning straight up, and it's still very, very wet out there. this is the start of the climb up Phone Track. Doesn't look steep on the camera, it's hard to sort of film it, but it's definitely a steady climb up here to the first chute. Let's go for a bit of a walk up the first chute to give you a bit of an idea of what you're going to face. And you can see these granite rocks that are sticking out of the ground. These are no real obstacle. And as it comes up, it's still quite wet today. It's really soft there. But these are the obstacles that are going to catch everybody out and do damage. And you get a big boulder in the chute that jumps up, and if you're struggling for traction, everyone has a run at them. And as soon as you run at them, they smash the vehicle over to this side and hit the wall. And you can see there, that's wheel marks, making those marks in the wall there, where it's something big and heavy slammed over into it. And as we come up here, it starts to get a bit steeper. And by the way, this is actually steep coming up. It's very deceiving inside the chute. You can't really see how steep it is. That's going back level to the car. You can see that it's rising up there now. And we're about a third the way up. And you can see here, this is a really decent obstacle. You can see the size of the walls here. So this is what does the damage when you don't slow it down. And you get thrown over into those. That's higher than the roof of the car. But here's the first big obstacle in the chutes, these ones here. Now when they're really muddy like yesterday, I was sliding off those, even on the way down. On the way up wasn't too bad, but on the way down it had rained that much that I was just sliding straight off it and slamming over into this wall. The rear step got to work out against that big bit of granite there. And you can see the black tyre marks in there when they're hitting at full noise to get over this pinch. It just throws them over into it. But once you're up here, it's not too bad. And you're at the end of the first pinch. There's still a lot of articulation here. You're not going to do it in a standard four-wheel drive with no diff locks. Well, you know, you could with the winch. And then that's to the end of the first chute. And you can see, looking back this way, back down to the car, you can get a bit of an idea how steep it is. But you can see those obstacles a lot better. These two main obstacles here are a lot better. It's still slippery. Oy. You can see those obstacles a lot better. They're actually quite steep. Just to jump up, the problem is if you've got a real heavy vehicle, there's no easing up onto them, especially if it's greasy and wet like today. You sort of have to get a run at it, and that's when the damage happens. There's a fair few different bits of footage here, just trying to give an idea of these steps up through the chute. this is where I run into Jackson and Ryan in their patrols. And they were over from South Australia. They're taking the week off work, coming over looking for all the tough tracks in Victoria. And they were definitely out living the dream. And while others were spending their time, you know, playing dress-ups and spending a huge amount of money on their vehicles to go somewhere maybe one day, these guys were just, you know, two good capable vehicles out there and doing it. It was quite impressive. It was a great opportunity to see all the different contrasts between the vehicles. And Jackson said his was, you know, limited slip in the rear, and it had a locker in the front, and, you know, a mechanical locker in the front, like auto locker. And Ryan's, he'd spent a fair bit of money recently. He just bought the car off another fella. I think it was one owner, he said. And he'd spent a bit of money on suspension and that sort of thing. He did say how much lift on quoting him. I think he might have said 5-inch lift, but all the patrol owners, if they're watching this, will recognise what it is. And you can see how wet it is here. Jackson, you know, just trying to climb these rocks here, there was just solid mud in between them and the lead up to them. You can see the tyres just full of mud there. It was a great effort trying to drive over them, but just a little bit too wet on the day. And this is where you can see the difference in experience. I mean, these guys were coming over from South Australia, and you know, they've got to get these rigs home, and they were driving accordingly. It was really good to see. I mean, they could have just done the full social media patrol pilot and set everything to 11 and just press the launch button. But if anything broke, they still had to get it home.
Yeah? Keep going. Who's that going to slide? It'll come off that rock, but you'll be able to get there. Yeah, I'll have to give it a bit though.
You can see here in the chute with the clearances on the sides, and you can see how the mud's just, you know, the clay has just filled the tyres, and it's just going up against those granites there, which have just polished with the mud. But the guys aren't giving up, that's for sure.
Give it a bit more of a bump and you'll be able to get up there.
Get a good look at Jackson's GU here. You know, there's no show pony here. This thing's definitely seen some work, and it's got the badges of honour to show for it. unfortunately with the mud the way it was, it really had no drive, and it was just pushing it straight back into the middle of the track, and they were just landing on the chassis, and it was just getting stuck.
Too far back. Now you're going to have to go right hand down and try and get back up that spot.
Unfortunately for the guys standing on the side of the track, I'd had a tow job recently and I'd screwed the fuel up on the pump for takeoff with the weight of what I had on the trailer to make it easier, but I forgot to adjust the screw, so every time I stood on the pedal, the guys would get smoked out. See, I'm driving out. I'm trying to drive onto the edges of the walls to get some sort of drive, because the 37s have just trenched this thing. So I'm sort of getting hung up in the middle on the diff with the 32s. But the Discovery still launches over there with a bit of wiggling on the side of the trench to get it up there. And this is in the dry, and yeah, completely different track in the dry. And this is Ryan's turn now to come up the track, and it's a good effort from him, but the Patrol is no locker in the front, so it's open at the front, and he's got one wheel drive and then the limited slip in the rear.
It's starting to get a bit dry. It's a lot drier than what it was when you went up. Yeah, you're over it.
think it's nowhere near here. Yeah, do that on the right. We're not going to hit the seal on it. Yeah. Yeah, it's just exactly like that. You plug your nose right there.
And this was a really great drive from Ryan. I mean, for what he had and what it was with the mud and how slippery it was, he was just about over. And if the car is having some trouble with the injection pump, he'd had it off and rebuilt before he come over. But it started playing up the day before he left, and you can see from the smoke, it was better just to back off and winch it up rather than try and flog it and create some problem getting it over it. It was great to run into these guys. It made it a really good afternoon. And you know, they'd done some crazy tracks in the week they'd been over, and they were still heading to the snow after this before heading home on the Sunday. So we'll just go down the track and have a bit of a look at how steep it is from the top now we're up. You sort of get a bit of, an idea there. As you come down here, it drops right off and gets quite steep. Old Discovery left some smoke signals on the wall on the way up. Up we go. It's just impossible to see how steep this next step is. And you've just got to step straight up on it. Nice bit of yellow Discovery on there. And you can see how deep it is here inside the chute. But this is over my head on this side. And as you come up here, you hit this rock. And yesterday this was just mud, and all it was doing was throwing the mud up against the rock and making it impossible to get over. In the dry, this is quite easy to drive. But in the wet, it was treacherous yesterday. And you can see where the diffs come up and smack that on the way through. But just how much that sticks up, because what happens is your wheel drops off the other side, you've got a wheel up on here and it's just bang. And you can see the marks on the other side of the wall on the way through where everything's hit it. And you can see coming up, it gets even steeper. And once you pass this point here, you're pretty well right in the dry. Yesterday, because it was so wet, it was even hard from here on, especially when you get up into those dips on the other side of this, when you get down into the clay. But you can see from the marks on the other side of the wall, especially when you hit this, I hit this yesterday in the Discovery, and the yellow paint is right the way along the side of the wall from the rear of the side step. And PHONE Track really is a good track if you want to come out and test your 4V and have a bit of fun. I wouldn't suggest anything in the twin cab utes or anything with a canopy. There's these rocks here that just throw you into the walls, they'll destroy your canopy. Just as long as you come into the track knowing that you're probably going to get damage, and you won't be so disappointed when you go home. But for those that like a challenge, PHONE Track is definitely it. It's got a bit of everything. It's not long. It's probably only, well, from the start to this point here, we'd like it to be 400 metres. and it goes out probably another 600 or 700 metres from just the top here back up to the Mount Hickey fire tower. So as you can see, phone track is a real challenge, and it's all these granites that jump up in the middle of the chutes that give you the most trouble. And there's broken bits of car up both sides of these chutes all the way up the track to tell the tale of just how full on this can get. And when you're down in the chute, you can see the granites, how far they stick out and how they claim bits and pieces of the car. There's a piece of yellow Discovery right there, and that was just yesterday. With it being so muddy, you just slide over to the angle of the track and just go bang on the way through. It was okay for the Discovery because you got it set up with those bars, but if you've got no bars on the back of the car, get ready to lose a quarter panel on that. But you can see the climb up onto this next obstacle is bad enough on two legs, let alone in a 40. And that's what stops you. That's quite a jump up. It's alright if you're down on the flat and drive straight up it, but while you're already on a slope like this and then you're faced with something like that, and it's muddy, that's a showstopper. And then you got one more just here, and it's the same thing again. It's another climb up while it's muddy, and it's quite a climb up. And over on the left hand side as you're coming up, you've got the old cheat track, but it's no longer a cheat track anymore. That's quite a climb up there. Then you're into these big rock shelves here as you head up and through there. And we're going to come up here in Disco later on the year when it's dry, just the way it is. One locker in the rear and a 50mm lift, other than that, standard. And just see how it goes. This is a bit better idea coming up. That's just one of the sets of rocks as you come up that are going to be climbed to get up this. This is going to be a bit of a while driving in the standard Disco.